Assalamualaikum everybody. Welcome back after lunch. We look forward to our next set of presentations from Ermal, Bega, Reza, Ambreen, Sultan, and Elma, Haryani. So those are the 4 presentations we have now. Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Ermal Bega. I am an Orientalist and culture researcher from Albania, and I do represent Albanian Center for Oriental Studies, of which I am the executive director of it. Concerning, in relation to this conference in Rabat, Morocco, the subject of my paper is higher education versus non-formal education among the Albanian Muslim women in the 20th century and beyond. As we know, the education of Muslims is the most important thing that Allah asks from us and about which Prophet Muhammad himself, peace be upon him, has advised us a lot. This is a duty for every Muslim, being male or female, but the education of the Muslim woman is the most important in Islam. Islamic history has shown us that the first person who accepted Islam was Khadija, the famous wife and beloved one of our Prophet Muhammad. This incident not only prompted us to meditate, but also shows us that Khadija herself, in addition to the trust she had in her husband as a just and honest person and man, asked him to learn more from the knowledge that it was revealed to him by the Almighty Allah. The same path is followed by many other women who became later on an important part of Prophet's life, such as Fatima and Aisha, and more respectively, the beloved daughter and the other wife of the Prophet, Messenger of Allah. Many important women in Islamic history have been known as initiators and supporters of knowledge, such as was Fatima al-Fikhri from the city of Karaouin in Tunis nowadays, Tunisia as a country, known as the founder and the financer, knowing as the founder and for financing this university called Al-Karaouin Mosque and University in the city of Fez in Morocco during the Abbasid Caliphate. As we know also, during the history of Islam among Albanians, there are many Albanian Muslim women who have been great supporters and of various knowledge. Meanwhile, only since the beginning of 20th century, when Albania was detached from the Ottoman Empire or Sultanate, until today in 2023, many changes have been taken place in Albanian society in Albania and in the other Albanian lands, including the education of Albanian Muslim women. We know that Albania has been part of Ottoman Empire for more than 5 centuries. So the education of Muslim Albanian women started from that time, but we are mostly concentrated in our topic in the education of formal and non-formal of Albanian Muslim women only in the 20th century and beyond, which means after the detachment of Albania from the Ottoman Sultanate. To make it separately as a proper history about the topic. So as I mentioned, many things happened during these years since the detachment of Albania, and then especially during the communism time, when Albanian women had no freedom of studying. And then we'll start again from the 1990s, when the communists fell down in Albania and a new era started for the Muslim Albanian woman in this regard. Albanian Muslim woman or Albanian Muslim women in general have a very special importance in Islam. Her education and her nature has a very importance in Islam, and she is regarded highly and valued, whether as a woman, as a sister, as a mother, a wife, and daughter. Therefore, the education of women has been always one of the basis and conditions, one of the conditions of the Islamic religion. Allah Almighty Himself, the Holy Quran, and the Prophet Muhammad, as the initial of the most important sources for Muslims and the whole of humanity, have their own principles for the education of Muslims. So, for the long 15th century of Islamic history, it has shown and marked the event of and happenings of the lives of many great Muslim women who have been the basis of the dissemination of knowledge in various areas of life, which Islam has included. The Islamic history tells us also that most of the famous women had love for knowledge and have given many contributions in this regard. We mentioned that the University of Qarawin in the city of Fes in Morocco had been established by Fatima al-Fihri, and this university, it is important to mention that it was founded in the difficult times when Europe was living in its dark ages, known as the Dark Ages of Europe. The same can be said about the education of Albanian Muslim women, that we had many Muslim women who were lovers of knowledge. The acceptance of Islam as by the majority of Albanians in all Albanian lands made Albanian Muslim women understand and receive their right to education either through books or by going to lessons in mosques, maktabs, schools near the mosque, madrasas, and then in universities. Muslim women understand and receive their right of education by Islam, and the same goes for Albanian Muslim women. So we know from our history that before that, there was no Muslims in Albania before the Ottomans, but also cannot be mentioned about any education of Muslim women because we don't have any information about that. In this paper, we will talk about also the condition of Albanian Muslims in general and Muslim women in particular after the separation of Albania from the Ottoman Sultanate, the creation of the Albanian state, and until the advent of communism, then about the conditions of Muslim women during communism, and finally about the education of Albanian Muslim women after the fall of communism until today. We hope that this paper will bring some new facts and knowledge about the education of Albanian Muslim women and give some ideas on how the state of their education can be improved, either through formal or informal education, and how Muslim women can be an Albanian vanguard for the education of the entire Albanian Muslim society. Unfortunately, we have to mention that as we couldn't find many sources on this topic, so unfortunately, Albanians didn't pay attention to the education of women after the detachment of Albania from the Ottoman Sultanate, but we tried to find the few sources that have covered in this study, of which we are mentioning that we have to mention also that there are some research questions which we mentioned as for the what were the historical reasons that were experienced by Albanian Muslim women, and how can the education of this woman change more for the better from non-formal education at home alone, or maybe in the mosque and meetups, and only from religious studies to the higher education of those women. First question, theoretical question, and the second question is, what about the education of Albanian Muslim women? How has it happened throughout history until today in 2023? As for the literature review, I mentioned we found a lack, but we found some sources written by Albanian Muslim scholars about the education of Muslim in Albania in general, which concludes even the education of women. And most important, it is to mention that as Albania was detached by the Ottoman Empire, we as a country remained as an orphan in middle of Europe, orphan Muslims in this regard. And it was a situation that we couldn't have any influence by the Ottoman Islamic community, which means we are separated, and we were trying to find a solution how to educate our Muslim compatriots. And one of them, I can mention, it was Hafid Ibrahim Daliu, who is considered the founder of the first madrasa, private school or high school for the Albanian Muslim woman in Albania. So it's important that such great Albanian Muslim scholar established a high school only for Albanian Muslim women. But in that time, it wasn't considered a madrasa, which means an Islamic madrasa, but it was considered a high school. Methodology of this paper is by choosing the way of what happened, by showing the story from the beginning of 20th century when we separated from Ottoman Empire, how it goes during the kingdom time, and then how it goes the education of Muslim women during the communism, and then after democracy, and what were the challenges they faced in our society. And findings will be by meeting the people who still are alive in Albanian Muslim society until today. And I met them, and we had interviews with them by asking them how it was the education of Muslim women before the advent of communism and during communism and until today. One of them is the former director of the Islamic Madrasa in Tirana, capital of Albania, which I met, and I asked him to give me some information about findings concerning to this paper. And finally, conclusion, it is that we think that the education of Albanian Muslim woman, as we have shown above, has experienced various stages of difficulty in her education in the 20th century, not only after the detachment of Albania from the Ottoman, not only because of detachment of Ottoman Empire, but even during the Albanian Muslim community, which was newly established in those days during the kingdom time. And we think overall that the education of Muslim women in Albania, besides facing so many troubles and challenges, it is important to educate her, being our children or our daughters, our wives, or our compatriots, for the better of Albanian Muslim society, as it is considered the biggest Muslim society in Europe of nowadays. And we hope that this paper will be helpful for the researchers to know more about the situation of Muslim women in Albania. Thank you, and see you soon.
Honorable guests and respected audience, it is my pleasure to present my paper in the Symposium on Education in Muslim Societies, Women's Scholarship and Engagement in Policy, Pedagogy and Development. So my name is Reza. I am an undergraduate student. Currently, I am pursuing my bachelor degree in Islamic law under the Faculty of Sharia at Darul Islamic University, located in southern Indian state, Kerala. So the title of my paper is The Role of Malala Yousafzai in Advocating for Girls' Education in Muslim Majority Countries, Challenges and Achievements. So I begin by acknowledging the undeniable truth that access to quality education for girls in Muslim majority countries like Afghanistan remains a critical and ongoing challenge. Discriminatory cultural norms, gender-based violence, poverty and inadequate infrastructure continue to hinder the educational opportunities of countless girls. However, amidst these challenges, Malala emerged as the advocate for the girls' education. Malala Yousafzai became the youngest ever Nobel Prize winner for her fight for her right to education. Her relentless advocacy for girls' education, despite grave threats to her own safety, took her global attention. In 2012, she survived a targeted assassination attempt, further propelling her cause onto the global stage. So the objective of this paper, which are questions that is addressed in the paper, is a comprehensive examination of Malala Yousafzai's advocacy for Muslim girls, equal right to education, challenges she faced on her journey, the strategies she employed, and her remarkable achievements, the remaining barriers in girls' education, and the future directions for advancing gender equality in education within Muslim majority countries. So the methodology used in this paper is a mixed methods approach combining both qualitative and quantitative data collection and analysis. So moving to the findings of this paper, Malala Yousafzai encountered multiple challenges during her advocacy journey. First of all, Malala bravely stood up against the Taliban's oppressive policies, particularly their ban on girls' education in her home region after they came into power. She faced the threat of violence and, as we know, survived a targeted assassination attempt. Her advocacy challenged deeply ingrained cultural norms and traditional gender roles, especially in Muslim majority countries, and the patriarchal attitudes and resistance to change posed significant obstacles to her work. And thirdly, the persistent danger to Malala's safety and that of her family underscored the grave risks associated with her advocacy. Living under constant threat was a harrowing experience for her and her family. While media attention amplified her message, it also subjected Malala, challenging her authenticity and intent in public. That why she is doing these, what motivates her for these, is it a kind of a show off or willing to be a media influencer? This type of questions arise in her work. And moving to the strategies that Malala employed in her work and throughout her journey, that in response to these challenges, after she was taken to Birmingham for her operation, after a shot and she got cured, she became more concentrated on her mission for girls' education. Malala employed several ingenious strategies for her mission. First of all, like authoring books. Malala authored books for her mission. Her first book was I Am Malala, the Girl Who Stood Up, was published in 2013, which portrays Malala's experience in being shot by the Taliban due to her standing up for educational rights. The book ultimately highlights her wisdom and compassion and her courageous efforts in fighting for girls' education. Also in 2017, she wrote a beautiful children's book which is titled as Malala's Magic Pencil. It is a heartwarming story about the magic pencil she used to change the world. Secondly, establishing the Malala Fund. In 2013, she established the Malala Fund, an organization dedicated to advocating for girls' education and investing in education initiatives worldwide. The fund is mainly focused on helping girls like in India, Brazil, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Turkey, Lebanon, Ethiopia, and Nigeria. The Malala Fund supports educational activists and volunteers in these countries who are working to make education a reality for all girls. This provided a structured framework for her advocacy. And Malala engaged with world leaders and international platforms, advocating for policy changes that support girls' education. Her speeches at the United Nations and meetings with influential figures underscored her global impact. Fourthly, empowering local communities, Malala recognized the importance of grassroots initiatives and engaged with local communities. She emphasized the compatibility of education with cultural values and religious principles. The Malala Fund has helped establish multiple schools. Malala used the money she got and obtained from her Nobel Prize to establish a school in Swat Valley, which is where she is from. Malala promised in 2014 that she would have a school established there at some time in future. She came through with her promise and created a wonderful school for girls. And the sixth strategies she employed that as an UN Messenger of Peace, Secretary General Antonio Guterres designated Malala as the United Nations Messenger for Peace in 2017 to help raise awareness of the importance of girls' education. A UN Messenger of Peace is an individual identified for their efforts related to their public involvement and are designated to use their efforts alongside the United Nations. Malala used her position to urgently promote girls' education rights at New York's UN headquarters. Also, most importantly, she also patronized the Nobel Cup organization, which seeks to provide free menstrual cups to girls and women in Ethiopia. In 2019, in an interview, she also promoted this organization. In this interview, she said, "We need to support the work of local female leaders like Sarah, who are leading the fight to ensure the menstruation doesn't stop girls for completing their education." So, helping this was also to remove the hindrance in their way of education, especially for girls. Now, moving to the remaining barriers and some future directions. However, these are substantial challenges that persist, for example, cultural norms, gender-based violence, socio-economic disparities, and inadequate resources continue to obstruct girls' education in many Muslim-majority countries. And achieving gender equality in education requires addressing deep-rooted gender inequalities within educational systems, curricula, and social structures. And thirdly, investment in educational infrastructure and resources remains a critical component in advancing girls' education. So finally, in conclusion, Malala Yousafzai's advocacy journey is not just her history, it's a history of courage. It reminds us that advocacy can be a catalyst for profound change and that education is the cornerstone of empowerment. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Ambreen Sultan. I'm a PhD candidate at the Department of Economics at International Islamic University, Malaysia. The topic of my presentation is Empowering the Next Generation, Future Literacy and Youth Development in Muslim Societies. This is the outline of my presentation. Introduction. Due to globalization, the youth in Muslim societies find themselves grappling with complex societal drivers of change, including disruptive technological innovations and shifting geopolitical and socioeconomic landscapes. The youth population is key to achieving development goals both now and in the future. As the eminent leaders, changemakers, innovators, and influencers, there is a need to nurture the potential of youth in the right direction. OIC member states are home to 350 million youth, accounting for 18.5% of their total population. OIC member states together account for 29%, which is slightly above 1/4 of the world's total youth population. According to UN World Population Prospects, by 2050, OIC member states are projected to account for more than 1/3 of the world's young population. This paper uses post-normal time theory and stresses that in these unprecedented times, the social inclusion of youth is imperative to achieve a more inclusive, equitable, and sustainable future for Muslim societies. This can be achieved by cultivating a future-thinking mindset in youth via future literacy. So what is the state of youth in OIC countries? The youth average literacy rate in OIC member states remained lower than that of non-OIC developing countries. Labor force participation in OIC countries also remained the lowest as compared to non-OIC developing and developed countries. Youth unemployment rate in OIC countries remained the highest. Similarly, economic inactivity among youth in OIC countries remained the highest. So what is the state of education in Muslim societies? Education in Muslim world is facing a crisis, writes Anwar Ibrahim in the foreword of Revitalizing Higher Education in Muslim World by Abu Suleiman. There is general agreement that the Ummah is passing through an extremely difficult stage, writes Dr. Taha Jabir Alwani in the foreword of Crisis in the Muslim Mind by Abu Suleiman. Moreover, the opening lines of the foreword of Rethinking Reform in Higher Education from Islamization to Integration of Knowledge echoes the same sentiments. Muslim societies are experiencing a crisis of education at all levels. Usman Bakr, in his article The Role of Islam in Higher Education Policies of Muslim Countries, argues that the decline of higher education in the Islamic world could be detected as early as 14th century. Quoting Ibn Khaldun, he mentions that the decline began from the westernmost wing of the Islamic world, namely Morocco and Spain. The colonial period aggravated the problem whereby secular education and alien educational institutions were introduced to the Muslim world to train the machinery needed to support the colonial powers. Realizing the malaise of the Ummah in the post-colonial era, efforts were geared to establish Islamic higher education institutions. International Islamic University Malaysia is one such institution. Critics criticize these institutions on the grounds of disciplinary boundaries as their Western counterparts or adopting imitative Western and historical solutions that do not consider the temporal and contemporary realities of the Muslim societies. The curriculum for all disciplines generally and particularly for business schools is designed to meet the needs of the industry and not the needs of society. This study takes Pakistan as a case study to show the outlook of youth about education and the future. Pakistan is the second largest Muslim country after Indonesia with a population of 231 million. It is also ranked as the fifth young country in the world with a 63% population of country comprises young age between 15 and 33. The study uses the report by British Council, the Next Generation Report 2023, to see the outlook of youth in Pakistan. The sample size comprises of 3,466 participants, both from urban and rural areas, male, female, and transgenders between age 16 and 34 were interviewed. Youth find their religious and national identities important. However, the religious identity has declined over time, and while the national identity has increased. Evidence shows that young population differ from the views and values of their parents in several areas, including social change, lifestyle, and education. Majority of young people feel they are unable to decide their future. Most respondents believe their lives are worse off than their parents, but still Pakistani youth are optimistic about their future and want to remain in the country. Concerns of the young people are related to unemployment, poverty, and economic growth. Teaching quality emerges as the number one concern in the education. Young people acknowledge the failure of the education system to provide them with skills needed for modern employment. Lack of innovation is seen as a critical issue. Curriculum development is harshly criticized as a major issue with more focus on theory than practical application. The widening industry-university gap, particularly in technology, leaves young people feeling unprepared for the job market. So, what is post-normal time? Ziauddin Sardar defines the post-normal time as an in-between period where all old orthodoxies are dying, new ones have not yet emerged, and nothing makes sense. The key characteristics of post-normal change are speed, scope, scale, and simultaneity that drives complexity, chaos, and contradiction. In this situation, orthodox methods do not work. So this time presents us with the opportunity to navigate the future. Managing the unpredictability of what lies ahead has become a formidable challenge. To overcome this uncertainty, it is crucial that we grasp it, and this is where future literacy becomes significant. To overcome the fear of the future and to bring about a real change, there is a need to teach and train the young generation to think critically and creatively about probable futures. By inculcating creative thinking, critical thinking, and imaginations, youth can be prepared to think about possible, probable, plausible, and preferred futures. UNESCO defines future literacy as the capability. It is the skill that allows people to better understand the role of future in what they see and do. Being future literate empowers the imagination and enhances. Just like financial literacy and digital literacy, future thinking are skills that can be cultivated. The objective of developing future literacy is to enhance one's ability to think more innovatively, analytically, and expansively regarding the future. Future literacy is an individual's capacity to comprehend how the future shapes the present and how present decisions and actions impact the future. Future literacy is imperative in developing future thinking mindset in Muslim youth to enable them to comprehend how the future influences their choices and behaviors. The future literacy programs and workshops bring together participants to question their current assumptions and biases and envision the potential future. This helps participants to focus on flexibility, adaptability, creativity, and imagination instead of obsessing over prediction and controlling the future based on their current perceptions. UNESCO holds future literacy labs in different parts of the world. To make our young generation agent of change, there is a need to substantially transform the education system in Muslim societies. An interdisciplinary approach must be adopted that considers the temporal and contemporary needs and situations of the Muslim societies. New discipline must be introduced that cater to the needs of changing environment we live in. By improving the future literacy of young individuals, they become more aware of the variety of potential futures and their capability to influence the course of future both on an individual level and on broader scale locally and globally. Through developing critical and creative thinking and fostering a future thinking mindset via future literacy capability in young Muslims, we may not be able to see into the future, but we can better equip to prepare, plan, and innovate to create the future we seek. Thank you so much.
Assalamualaikum. Good morning, everyone. Honorable committee and participant. Before we begin, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the committee for giving me such an opportunity for being a presenter here in this international symposium. Amazing event. And I would like also to introduce myself. I am Elma Haryani. I work in the National Research and Innovation Agency in the Republic of Indonesia in the Department of Development Policy. My presentation today will have five consists. Let me share my screen first. First, about background. Second, methodology. And third, research question. Then the fifth is conclusion. My title is Strengthening Culture of Peace and Religious Moderation through Women's Interfaith Extensionist in Indonesia. Background of research. Mainstreaming gender empowering women as strategic agenda in the process of strengthening tolerance and peace. According to the result of a 2017 national survey supported by United Nations Women and the Wahed Foundation and conducted by the Indonesian Survey Institute with the theme Trends of Religious Social Tolerance among Indonesian Muslim women. Indonesian women have the potential to become agents of peace. According to the result of the survey, 80 more of women support the right to freedom of religion, and besides that, women 80 more also unwilling to be radical than men, and women are less intolerant than men. So this is the fact. The result of the survey explained the potential situation, I think, of socio-religious tolerance and among Muslim women and the factor of that contributed to strengthening tolerance in Indonesia. In line with the result above, the Ministry of Religious Affairs. Later on, we can call it MORA, M-O-A-R. I was working in the Ministry of Religious Affairs during 11 years before my current position in the National Research Center. In line with the result above, MORA, or the Ministry of Religious Affairs in Indonesia, have had a significant role in spreading and strengthening tolerance and peace in Indonesia through the women's interfaith extensions. The ministry has approximately 4,354,000 male and female government workers of religious extensionists from across religion, beside non-government workers. Religious extensionists are the forefront of campaigning for the value of religious moderation, national commitment, non-violence, tolerance, and adaptation to the local culture. And we call it religious moderation atau moderasi beragam. The duties and function of women religious extensions in the wider community are very strategic and unique. And this research will examine this phenomenon. Methodology. The method used in this research is qualitative method in the form of case study. Data collection will be carried through interview, literature, documentation, and observation. Interview will be conducted with a number of informants from various elements of society who are considered to know the problem being studied. Literature and documentation studies are carried out by examining books and documents related to the issues under study. Research location is in Indonesia, and to produce accurate conclusion, technical triangulation is used. The data was successfully collected was processed through the volume stage, editing, classification, and interpretation to gain new understanding and method for compiling study results. To what extent, this question is to what extent the understanding and implementation of strengthening the values of religious moderation and the duties and function of women's interfaith extensionists. Secondly, what is the contribution of women's interfaith extensionist work in promoting religious moderation and for nobility within and inclusive leadership? And thirdly, what factors contribute to the strengthening and practicing the values of religious moderation, tolerance, commitment to humility, non-violent, adaptation to local culture in the field? The significance of female interfaith extensionists. Penyuluh agama or female interfaith extensionists under the MORA in Indonesia serve as a vital link between the government, religious communities, and societies. They contribute to religious education, community development, crisis response, and the promotion of tolerance and harmony, all of which are critical aspects of Indonesia in the religious landscape and its diverse society. And their main duty, based on minister regulation, are first providing religious education to individual and communities, fostering religious literacy and practice. Secondly, promoting tolerance and harmony among Indonesia's diverse religious communities, helping to prevent and resolve religious conflict, and third, engaging in community development effort and addressing social issues while integrating religious issues, for offering spiritual and emotional support during crisis, guiding individual based on religious principles. Most of them have like a halaqah, and we call it in Indonesia Masjid Ta'lim, under their supervising. 5, encouraging the practice of moral and ethical values as prescribed by religious teaching. 6, existing in the management of religious institutions and organizing related events. 7, serving as link between the government and religious communities, ensuring alignment with community needs, contributing to counter-radicalization, participating in social welfare programs, especially those with religious charitable aspect, and last but not least, facilitating interfaith dialogue to foster understanding and cooperation among diverse religions. And this is crucial for maintaining peace in Indonesia because religiously diverse society. Finding. Bogor was deliberately chosen in the study because the city is one of the supporting cities for the capital of the Republic of Indonesia. Among the supporting cities, Bogor is most often mentioned by the mass media with the highest level of religious class. Religious class such as the Yasmin Bogor Church dispute, the closure of the Ahmadiyya Masjid, a mosque, illustrates the extent of religious complicities that occur in the region. And this study examined how the role of female interfaith extensionists place and relate with some religious issues there. We found some significant positive role model of female Interfaith extensionists there, intriguing and emerged from the study conducted in Indonesia regarding the rules and responsibility of female religious extensionists. Specifically, the research focused on their dedication, obligation, and function in promoting and enforcing religious moderation in order to strengthen the culture of peace in Indonesia. We have like four positive role model as a female religious extensionist in the different background of religion. First is Putu Sukartini, practicing a cultural approach. Putu Sukartini is a Hindu female religious extensionist, emphasized the importance of cultural approach to reinforce religious moderation values among the Hindu community. And women play a significant role in promoting religious moderation, and particularly in educating children and families about the values of tolerance and nonviolence aligned with the principle of AEMS. During the pandemic, for example, many activities and programs were carried out through online activities like fundraising, prayer and worship together, socialization of religious values. They're doing some Sunday praying, and they call it Pasraman, and also join activities with other religious groups, included Chinese New Year celebration. Even they are Hindus. And Putu hopes and suggests that women can work together to strengthen each other and develop the value of tolerance by understanding and accepting difference in religious practice. Promoting religious literacy through reading and understanding other religion can establish national unity and integrity. She said so. Second, Anita Rohana. Anita Rohana is Christian religious extensionist. According to her, women have a uniqueness in developing and strengthening religious moderation values, namely a more family approach or mediator. Some of the programs created by Anita and other religious educators are providing counseling, collaborating, counseling of church in motion, average 200 congregation, having built communities, create a unique method in dealing with case of intolerance, namely by mapping the problem and intensive communication with all parties involved in a particular case. Third, Chido Linawati, practicing Metta Kurana. Chido Linawati is a Buddhist religious extensionist. Compassion is a method as a way to understanding others. The concept of Metta Karuna or practicing Metta Karuna has been practiced by all the Buddhists there. And even more interesting is that religious interactions that Buddhists in Bogor are mostly women. Religious communities in Bogor face distracting issues, creating an uncomfortable atmosphere. Religious instructors play a vital role in providing awareness and counseling on religious issues. Hate speeches and hoax. Then, strengthening the value of tolerance can begin in family and through media literacy. Female Buddhist religious counselors also contribute to the success of programs and activities, supported by Buddhist women who assist with social humanitarian program and tolerance failure socialization. And the last is from Islamic religious counselor and community leader Mas Khalila and Zakia. They are encouraging inclusive female leadership. She take care of 200 orphans and founded an Islamic boarding school for underprivileged children in the Kampung Bending district. She also tried to socializing religious moderation values and promoting tolerance through Majlis Taklim or Liko or Halaqah, Muslimah Halaqah assembly in the Islamic boarding school as a part of the peace campaign through Tusi religion, through Islamic teaching. She campaigned values such as tolerant national commitment and anti-violence and adaptation to local culture. Even more, Zakia believes that young people are the key to the future, and therefore it's essential to promote religious moderation among them. Although the general public may not be familiar yet with this concept, the values of religious moderation have been practiced for a long time and campaigned by the female extensionists. So we come to conclusion that empowering women religious extensionists to promote religious moderation for a stronger culture of peace in Indonesia proved that women play a crucial role in advocating for religious moderation. It is vital for promoting peace and stability. And here are 3 key factors considered that outline the significance of women in promoting religious moderation. First, women religious instructors possess a comprehensive understanding of religious moderation values, which they practice and promote through various means. The extension of religious truth women over a distinct and unique perspective that strengthens the value of religious moderation, given its gender focus. And last, women religious instructors face more intricate challenges and opportunities in the line of work, making their contribution even more valuable. They place inclusive leadership in managing challenge and opportunity also. So it's my last slide. In Indonesia, we say thank you by saying terima kasih. Thank you so much. Shukran jazilan. And I hope this presentation has shed light on topic. Let's continue discussion. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Anyway, so he's got off to write an exam. So unfortunately, any questions cannot be posed to him. But of course, you are more than welcome to pose any questions to Ermal, Ambreen, and Elma, who are all online at this moment, and the floor is open. So we've had papers that looks at Afghanistan, Albania was the first one, and Indonesia, and of course, we also had the other one, but the one of Afghanistan, I think, on Malala. So any questions from the floor or online? Please feel free to pose your questions. No questions? Okay, so perhaps I will get started with Ermal on Albania. Is he with us?
Yes.
Busy? Okay. Yeah, well, thank you so much for your paper. I've never ever read up or engaged with any literature on Albania, so it's really good for me to learn from you today. I'd like to know from you. Oh,
Yes.
yes,
We know.
so I'm looking at you. Yeah, please. Okay, so I hope you can still hear me. Can you tell us a bit more about what do you think are the most problematic challenges, or what are the kinds of challenges which Muslim women typically encounter in Albania? Give us some more insights into their daily or kind of lived experiences in that society, please. Thank you.
Yes, assalamu alaikum. First of all, I'm happy to be part of this conference, even I'm sorry I couldn't be in Morocco, even I tried a lot to join. So thank you for a question. Concerning to the situation of Muslim women in Albania, it has many differences comparing to the Indonesian or Malaysian environment as Muslim majority countries. But we, being part of the Balkan region and Europe, we've been having many problems in our history about the education of women, but especially coming to the 20th century, when Albania was detached from the Ottoman Empire, in a time when we had many well-educated women in those days. But after that, Albanian political situation changed. The kingdom came, then the Italian conquested Albania, German conquested Albania, communism from within came into Albania as a ruler. And in 1990s, when the Berlin Wall was destroyed and when communism fell down, the situation of Muslims appeared to change as well in this society. In which meaning, which are some of the challenges? After the 90s, when we regained the freedom of religion, especially Islamic, especially Islam as we chose to be Muslim. I mean, not only for our background, but we chose to be Muslims in those days. Especially for women became different challenges, starting for wearing the hijab, starting for having the right to be educated, starting to go at school for studying, wearing a hijab, or some of them were forced to remove it while entering in a class and then put it again. Same situation almost in the time of Turkey during Ataturk, when he forced the woman to remove it. So we suffered in this situation, but recently, since many years, the situation has been changed, but still Islamophobia is in rising among Albanians. Even that we are mostly majority Muslims, and the women are really interested, Albanian women recently nowadays are really interested in Islamic studies and Islamic life. Also, they still face some challenge in education. For example, you cannot see many Muslim women in public universities wearing hijab. They are forced by the professors, they are threatened somehow not to wear it, etc. So different bad situations for them. Why is that? There are many reasons in that for these challenges. Because we are considered the biggest Muslim country in Europe, and this has no doubt that even Europeans accept it, but they don't want a big Muslim country in Europe, which is their problem with us. And we have a non-Islamic government, we have non-Muslim prime minister, or even president, or just by name, which are not caring about the challenges that Muslim women are facing nowadays. So let's say that the challenges are increasing, but at the same time, in private universities, women wearing hijab, they are accepted and not having any big problem with it.
Thank
Yes.
you. Thanks so much for sharing that with us. I really appreciate that. Are there any other questions before I look again online?
Excuse me?
I'm just checking it out. I'm just checking there are more questions. Oh, okay. Yes, you just give me 1 second. The mic will come to you. Thank you so much.
Yes.
No, I'm speaking to somebody in the room.
Noran, do you want the lights on?
Yes, please. We have another question. Thank you. If you could just introduce yourself and then pose your question.
Hi everyone. Abdelaziz Zouri, I'm professor at University of Interfaith in Morocco. I've been really pleased to attend this session, and I probably have a question. I'm not sure if it's Ambreen who presented the third.
Yes, Ambreen is the third presenter.
Yes, thank you first of all to the presenters. So Ambreen, there is something that attracted my attention when you talked about the decline of higher education, and you referred to the 14th century, and you said that it started in countries that are related to the West, including Morocco. I'm so much interested in understanding, in knowing more, because I think, I don't know, but I haven't read a lot about it, but I feel like it's kind of a minimalist approach to take. I'm not sure if you've read more about it, beyond what Ibn Khaldun said, because we know that there are other reasons that might be taken into consideration when we talk about the decline of higher education. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the question. Ambreen, did you hear the question? Perfectly.
Yes,
okay.
I did. Thank you so much for the question. Actually, I just quoted Dr. Usman Bakr, who wrote in his article about this evidence. Yeah, we need to look more into different narratives. There are different narratives. Decline does not just started linearly from one place, and there is a need to dig more into it. It was just that the decline started, and then in the post like the colonial era made us to adopt later on in the post-colonial era to the educational institutions that were set up as missionary schools. So we took those set up as determined, and then we somehow modified. But later on, obviously, in the last half of last century, we realized when the different like Muslim countries emerged on the map of the world, and then they have to set up their like government and or economic institutions. They think about it, how to change and make values, put values into these institutions. So one such is like the conference that was held in Makkah in 1970s that initiated basically the Muslim universities, one of the universities, International Islamic University in Malaysia, to bring the change. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
I hope I answered the question.
Yes,
Speak
it
closer
looks
to the
like you
mic.
have. Thank you so much. Are there any other questions? From the floor, our online guests?
May I ask a question, Professor?
Yes, of course, you may.
Yeah, thank you so much. Assalamualaikum, everyone. Nice to meet you. I'm quite interested to know more about the dynamic of Muslim community in Mr. Ermal Bega presentation just now. I would like to know more about how actually do you define Islamophobia, which discriminating women in the midst of Muslim community itself. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I didn't hear it well, the question. I didn't get it fully.
Alma, would you like to just repeat the core question, please?
Yeah, I just want to know more about how do you define Islamophobia, with discriminating women in the midst of Muslim community themselves.
Okay.
Because you said many times about happening of Islamic phobia in Muslim countries. Just want to know about your theoretical something about how you define Muslim phobia. I mean Islamic phobia.
Islamophobia. Yes, I got it now. Let me explain something. In Albanian situation, Islamophobia is something special, because I mentioned that we are considered the biggest Muslim country in Europe. In this case, we are native. We are same as Indonesians or Malaysians. We are same as many other groups, Muslim groups in the world, which are native, and we just absorb Islam as our religion in majority. In this case, Islamophobia in Albanian environment is different from the Western countries among Muslims who lives in Europe. In this case, I mean that adding a non-Muslim government in a majority Muslim society, this is the worst Islamophobia which he can rule easily through the media with his politicians to be against Muslims and to put them in charge. For example, we don't see many Muslims, well-educated Muslims, being in charge. We don't see many of them being in official positions. In your case, as you've been working in the ministry, as you said before, it is easily, because Muslims don't know each other, it is easily for you. But to us, we face many problems, and me myself faced many problems to be in official departments, because if we are not any part, of any political party, it is so difficult to us, and we face Islamophobia just by knowing that we are Muslims or practical Muslims or just taking care about Muslim values. So this kind of Islamophobia among Albanians is different from the rest of the world. I think I answered somehow.
Yes, you have, and it's most fascinating to think that in a Muslim majority country, you also are subjected to Islamophobia. And of course, if you look at Ambreen and Elma's presentations, they're not encountering that in their own Muslim countries. So it's quite interesting how the ideology of Islamophobia plays out in different contexts. Are there any other questions? Because I feel like I'm controlling all the questions here. Please, anybody?
I'm just curious for the presenters and maybe some of the presenters here too. Since the morning and yesterday and this session, we are talking about Muslims as one unit. There are about 1 billion Muslims in the world, and there are so many conflicting interests from so many different countries, governments, and people, but also multiple identities that are at play, and not just the religious identity here. And I just want to ask people like, what makes Islamophobia in Albania, where it's a Muslim majority society? Maybe there are other types of identities at play that maybe you can speak more about, and maybe that's a question for everyone else as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
If I can continue.
Yeah, you may. You may continue.
I can say something else. I mentioned that the communism in Albania was different from other countries as well. Albania in 1967 became the first official atheist country in the world, with a declaration, with a law that Albania has no religion, and became atheistic totally. But before that, we had many great Muslim scholars, men and women as well, alike, who gave too much contribution about Islamic studies and Islamic Muslim society in Albania. With the coming of the communism political party and dictatorship in Albania, and the fall of communism, the so-called democratical changes in 1990s, we didn't have the chance to remove totally the communist and atheist ideas from our society. And this became a threat to our identity as Muslims in majority. We just replaced the communist dictatorship politicians with other offsprings of them, or with other people who have the same ideas as them, which means like or atheist or communism ideas, but in a democratic way. In this case, also, they didn't give any priority to the Muslim majority of Albanians. They didn't give any priority to Muslim women in Albania. But Alhamdulillah, let's say, if you see during the Eid prayer in Albania or in Tirana, in capital, where I am from, you will see lots of Muslim women being praying and fasting. And it's fascinating to us that most of women who became Muslims, most of Albanian modern people who became Muslims are from women society. But unfortunately, the Islamophobia came in another way, that they don't give priority or posts to Muslims, being men, being women. No Muslim woman, no Muslim man you can find in ministries in Albania. No Muslim woman wearing hijab or even just praying you will find in any ministries in Albania or municipalities, etc. Maybe in a local small town in Albania, in north and south. But in Tirana, which is capital, you can never find any Muslim man or woman who is part of the political environment, because we still have the communism ideology here, and it is a threat to our society within us.
Thank you so much. I don't know if the other presenters want to add to that. You're more than welcome. I think one of the things that we are, and I think it started yesterday already, we've been not grappling, but maybe we are grappling with it. This term Islamophobia and what we understand by that, because it plays out quite differently in how it intersects with race, gender, culture, language, and nationality. So it's fascinating. What does come through though in all three presentations is, I think, the centrality of women as an easy target, as an easier target. And I'm wondering, is it because of the death code? Is it the visibility of the Muslim woman which singles her out for Islamophobia more easily than the male, for example? So these are things we are grappling with, I think, which is important. Are there any other questions from the floor? I don't see anything online either.
There is one question.
One? Okay, so, it's Bushra. She presented earlier, where she says, same situation in Turkey. It looks like Islamophobia is a challenge for some Muslim countries where it become entrenched in secular ideals, where you have extreme views on both sides. I would like to know if this phenomenon is concentrated more with the elite strata or everywhere. So again, this is intersection with class, which I think I've just kind of singled out. Because what liberal democracies, of course, have done in most of Europe, starting with France mostly, is that they have singled in on women as this deveiling of women as a form of liberating her. I mean, that's the kind of discourse, you have to look like us in order to be liberated. So it's fascinating. Thank you for your contributions. It's been most enriching. We've learned a lot from all three of you, so thank you very much. And we hope that you will join us again for the next panel, which I think we are doing.
Thank you so much, Professor.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Another applause. Thank you so much.